Yeah, I'm sharing my screen if it is visible.
Not
Yes,
yet.
you can see it.
It is. It is visible,
I
you know.
don't know. I
Jitin,
think
I
I
think it's your network. Yeah,
just give me a second. I will quickly change it out. I will take the other network.
sure.
Now you can hear me.
Yes.
Now it's clear.
Yeah,
Yeah, good.
quite better. It's
Okay. Okay. I hope you can see my screen.
yeah, we do.
Okay, good.
Um,
So guys,
not not now, I guess.
can you see my screen? No.
No, I think that was my screen, which everyone was able to see before.
Can you just do stop sharing for a minute? Like I will share my
Yeah,
screen.
I did. Yeah, I just stopped.
Just see my screen.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So guys, welcome to a fourth. And the topic for today's meetup is like testing with MuleSoft. And Deepali will going to explain you like what are the different kind of testing and how you can create a test like test cases using MuleSoft basically. So let me start with safe harbor statement. So both speaker and host or meetup in the individual capacity only. We are not representing any company or any organization here. The presentation is strictly for learning purpose, and like organization and presenter do not hold any responsibility that same solution will work for your business requirement. The presentation is not meant for any promotional activities. Some housekeeping activities like a recording of this meetup can be
I'm not sure if I lost Jitendra voice.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
I think he must have a pretty bad network.
Yeah. Yeah, it's I think his network issue. Anyway, let him join back. If not, this okay. I think he was speaking but cannot hear us. Okay, so he mentioned some housekeeping stuffs.
Nitish, can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear Jitendra.
Nitish, do one thing like you can take it from housekeeping. Anyone can take from because I have some issue network.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
can
Let me do. Yeah. Dipali, do one thing. Just share your screen, and
Yeah,
we'll go with some basic slides. Then you can start from there. All right.
sure. That will
Okay.
work. So, yeah, I suppose he was here.
Yes, this housekeeping stuff. So, as Jitendra mentioned, recorded, and it will be putting on YouTube and the event page as well in next 24 hours. So he does it very quickly. So probably next couple of hours you must see it. And you're free to ask any questions. Just submit your questions in chat box here, right? And you have your presenter mode as on as well. So if you have any question, just unmute yourself and speak. But make sure if some topic is at the end, then you get a chance to speak on, right? And post that. Uh, we encourage you to give us the feedback because you know that's bread and butter for all the meetups, and we get to hear from you where we are lacking, how we can uh, you know make it even better for all of us, all of you. So yeah, next slide, please, Dipali.
Yeah.
Yeah, next this about organizers. So Jitendra Bafna is working with EPAM system as a principal architect, and he's one of the organizers for this meetup. Then next we have Dipesh Dubey. He's a consultant with an IT firm. Dipesh, if you're here, you can
Yeah,
speak about this. You know.
Hi everyone. Hello. I'm also working as a senior developer, and I welcome you all for the fourth meetup. Thank you. Thanks, Nitish.
Thank you, Dipesh. Next is Ravi. Ravi, everybody knows him. He's a MuleSoft
No,
ambassador.
hello everyone. I'm currently I'm working for Capgemini. Yeah, that's all. We can proceed further. Thank you.
And the last one is me, Nitish. I'm working with EPAM systems, and I'm working as lead software engineer. And yeah, please go next.
Yeah. So, hello everyone. I'm Dipali, and I'm working as a MuleSoft consultant with Devo Team UK. And yeah, I have been working in MuleSoft for around 6 years. So that's all. Moving on. Yeah. So Nitish, can I start from here?
Sure. Thank you everyone for
Yeah.
joining in. We'll start with our agenda for the day. If any question, just put it on chat box or unmute yourself to speak when there is, logical end to any topic. Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Yeah. Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining today. So today's agenda is to discuss about testing and more about like how we do testing in MuleSoft. So that covers overview of testing, unit testing, and test approach. We will be covering Emmunite testing, Emmunite test recorder as well, and some of the best practices. And at the last, we'll be having a small demo to show all of these topics, like how we do cover that in MuleSoft. And yeah, at the last, we have a small quiz as well. So winner of that quiz will get prizes. Yeah, so starting from here, so first we have overview of testing. So before we go into more details, yeah, so we need to understand like what testing is, how we do it, and what are the different type of testings. So in general terms, testing is finding out how well something works. So when it comes to code, so this is the way like how a code is working and how it is supposed to work. So it's basically checking the code's expectation with the actual outcomes. And then we have testing types. So based on the process how we do the testing type can be in two ways. One is manual testing and automation testing. In case of manual testing, as the name suggests, the test cases has to be written and executed manually. And whenever we want to execute the test cases, the individual has to go and run the test case every time. And second one has the automation testing. So in this case, we use some sort of software techniques to do the testing. So in this case, we have to write the test cases and write some script at once, but that can be reutilized in further iteration if we want to use. So it's basically doing testing automation once and reutilizing it. So that's the testing types. Moving on, we have testing stages. So there are different stages of testing. So based on the nature of a project, the stages may alternate. Like we can have system testing before or integration testing after. So the sequence may not be the same, but yeah, we do these type of testings in projects. Like whenever we build a code. So first one is the unit testing. So it's validating that each software unit performs as expected. So this is the very first stage when developers build the API. So developer has to verify the code if that is working as expected, because developer has the insight into the code. So that person can validate each part of the API. Second one, we have system testing. So this is the first level in which a complete application can be tested as whole. So once the API development is done, so we can do the system testing. Next is integration testing. So in integration testing, we make sure the components which we are using. For example, we have built an API and we are using database or any like any other backend system, and we are doing some manipulation in MuleSoft, and we are integrating that with some other application like web application or app application. So is there the integration working fine? So those kind of scenarios are covered in integration testing. Next we have acceptance testing. So user acceptance testing is conducted to determine whether the system is ready for release. So this is majorly done by the stakeholders or the client, just to give a green light to the code, like whether that can be released or can go to production. Next we have performance testing. So to evaluate the software performance under different workload, so we do this. How we do it? Suppose we have one API, we want to do the performance testing. So we can try to use some script where we can increase the parallel hits to that API, and to check the performance more better, we can keep increasing the load and just check the performance, like API response time, how API is performing, and like in how much time it's responding, and if it is not breaking, if we have multiple load, or if the backend system is not breaking. So that kind of scenarios are covered in performance testing. Next we have regression testing. So in simple terms, regression testing is basically to verify if the new changes on an existing code has not broken the functionality. And last we have the stress testing. So this is to test the strain. Suppose we have an API, we want to do the stress testing. So we keep increasing the load on that API using JMeter or any other tool. We hit the API with multiple loads. For example, maybe we hit that API with 100 and then 500 parallel hits. So that is basically to understand whether the API can take that much load, and we do it until the API breaks. So that gives an estimation for the client, like how much that API will um, API can take, how many hits can be like taken by the API. Moving on to the next slide. So today our main focus is about the unit testing, and that also like in Mule, how we can do the unit testing by the MuleSoft product Emmunite. So before we start, we need to understand like what a unit is and how we do the unit testing. So a unit is the smallest testable component of an application. For example, individual component, transfer message, flow, condition. So these each components are considered as unit. In unit testing, we test them individually. For example, we have a transfer message, suppose like we see in this flow here. So if there are some functions written inside it, so in unit testing, we try to verify whether any of the function or manipulation is not breaking the code. So up to that extent, we do testing in the unit testing. And unit testing tests are typically automated tests written and run by software developers. So that's the key point. Like the person who is building the API needs to write the test cases for unit testing, and these test cases are designed to ensure that a section of the application meets its requirement. So we need to write the test cases in a way like we verify each section of the application. um, and yeah, application we need to verify application behaves as intended for all possible known scenarios. So let's take the example of this subflow. If being a developer, if we need to do the unit testing for it, so we have like loggers. So in unit testing, we should make sure the required information is being printed or logged by these loggers. Second, we have transfer message. So there can be some computation or logic written in transfer message. So in unit testing, we make sure all of those computations are working fine. And we have a requester also, HTTP requester in this subflow. So we need to make sure in unit testing, like if the error scenarios, success scenarios are taken care nicely. For example, if this component breaks, if we do not handle that in our API. So this will go to the default error handling, and it will give a random message, random error message. So in API we try to maintain the error structure, HTTP codes. So we should make sure all the scenarios are handled, and default scenario also handled in a way so that give proper information to the client. So these all we verify in the unit testing. Now comes the question, like how we do the unit testing. So we have different tools in market which we can utilize, but some of the commonly used are Postman. Postman, and we can use Studio Embedded Emmunite and REST client. So in the further slides and even demo, I'll be showing you the Postman, like how we use it, how we can make a collection, reutilize it, and we will be seeing the Emmunite recorder also, like how we can use Emmunite, how we can use Emmunite test recorders. And REST client is also quite similar. So once like we get understanding on 2 or 3 tools, it's easy to understand other tools. Yeah. So moving on. Next topic is test approach. That means like when we do the testing, what we should keep in our mind. Yeah, so when you perform unit testing, so you need to verify few of the points. But before we get into the details, this is how the Postman screen looks like, in which we define the method here. We provide the URL, and we can give input parameters like query parameter or URI parameter in this section. And we can define authorization, header, or body if we have a post request. And we can use this send button to send the request, and the lower section is for the response. We get the response body and some headers, cookies, and we see the HTTP status. So this HTTP status and structure is very important, because this give information to the client or the third party which is using our API. So this is what, like, we have to pay more attention while doing unit testing. So coming back to the points, first one, we should verify the HTTP status, because in some of the application, even the client, or we can say the third party, do not go to body. They decide the feature based on HTTP status. Like we can keep 200 for success scenario, 201, 207 that says like partial success. So based on different scenario, we should make sure the status is fine with what the response we are sending. Second point we should verify, that is value, or we can say the payload. What is the outcome of the request? Suppose we have a set of query parameter or URI parameter. So based on that, what is the expected value? We should verify the structure, if there is any null, is that expected. So we can check even directly from backend if that's what we are expecting into payload. So we should thoroughly verify the payload. Payload means the body, what we are getting in response. Next point is verifying input headers. So suppose we have a set of headers which we use in our application. So for example, if we are using some for the tracking purpose, like transaction ID or correlation ID in header, if we are using that for the logging, so if that information is getting logged or not, so that kind of check we do in the unit testing, because that is visible to developer at very initial level, like when the developer is doing the development. So we verify this in unit testing. Next point is verifying the URI parameter, query parameter. So like we just need to verify whether if we change the value of URI parameter or query parameter, then how the payload is changing, or if any manipulation is not going wrong based on the different outcomes. So that's how we verify the input parameter. And next is we need to check system for negative scenarios. Like it's not the verifying application, like if my API is working fine, giving success. Not only that, we should also verify the negative scenarios, like if I'm changing the query parameter or like something random value in the body. So if API is giving me bad request or empty response, something like negative scenarios should be handled, and we should try to make the error structure maintain the error structure for different error scenarios. So that is also one kind of check we need to do in unit testing. Next one is changes of the state of system. For example, if we are using choice or try catch or if else some kind of conditions in our system, so we should try to reproduce or recreate the scenarios. Suppose we have three routes in choice, like each route is working fine, we should try to move our API event into each of the route. So we should, that says like we should verify each condition whatever we have written in the code. And last one is null check. So this is very important one, because MuleSoft is basically using the DWL expressions to write in each component. So when we say null check, so because some fields which we are applying condition or applying logic or any of the operation, if we receive null value, that operation will fail. And if any DWL expression fail in any component, so the complete component fails. So we should write conditions and logics and functions very carefully, and we should try to verify them. So these are the major points which we should keep in mind when we do the unit testing. And here I have one more scenario, like one API is there, which is a get API. If I try to hit with the post, so I'm getting 405 method not allowed and the error structure. So that's how like we should try with different scenarios to test the negative points. Yeah, so moving on. So these are some commonly used HTTP status, and yes, we have more than these, like what we have listed here, like 200 series for success scenarios, like 200 okay, 201 created. Even we have partial success. So success also has different versions. So based on HTTP status, that can be identified at very first glimpse when we see the HTTP status. Second series we have 400, where 400 bad request, 401 unauthorized, 403 forbidden. So there are again like multiple 400 versions which we have. So that also very important in every different scenario. Next we have 500 series. Same way, like we maintain this status based on the error what is happening in the API. So this information is very easy to check in. Even in on internet we can see like what one HTTP status mean. Moving on, the very important topic, Emmunite. So what is Emmunite? Emmunite is fully integrated with Anypoint Studio that allows you to create, design, and run Emmunite tests. So this we do exactly like how we create the API flows. So let me explain that. The when we have a design, or we can say API specification, we create an API using that specification. So our basic structure will be created, like the flows will be created. Same way, if we have the API specification, so using API kit router, we can even create the Emmunite. So you can use how we can create the Emmunite. That is, we can use Studio's graphical interface to create and design the Emmunite tests. We can run the Emmunite tests and view the result, like what is the performance, and we can see the coverage, how much of our code has been covered, and if in case of some failure, we can even debug the test cases. So this is how the structure looks like of one Emmunite test, and the test suite will be created under source test Emmunite section. So suppose this is my API, this is source main folder for the main application, and down we have source test Emmunite folder where the test suite will be created. Next we have like how do we create it, create the test suite. So there are two ways to do it. First one is the using API specification, like we can make use of API kit router that has API specification configuration. If we right click on that, we can create the test suite. Other way is the test recorder. So test recorder enables you to record a processing flow and then configure the unit test. So in the demo, I'll be showing you like how we do that in the Anypoint Studio. Moving on. Next we have Emmunite test features and components. So what are the features of Emmunite? So Emmunite has a set of dedicated event processors to validate, assert, and mock the content. So if you see in the right side, these are some component which are specifically we have for Emmunite. So this is how a test case looks like. We can make use of these three sections. Like in the execution, we start the execution of the test flow. So we can have a flow reference here, we can have a HTTP requester here, which makes call to our API internally. We can mock the behavior, spy the behavior here, and at last, once the execution and behavior is set, then we have the validation section where we can verify using assert component. Like we have assert equal, assert expression, and assert that. So we can make use of these components to verify the outcome. So we can design one complete test suite like that. And these are the Emmunite dependencies. So whenever we create Emmunite or create the API, so these dependencies will be created to enable the Emmunite test suite to work. Yeah, and some of the features are like this is a testing framework for Mule application, and Anypoint Studio embedded testing framework, and developer needs to write the unit test in Emmunite. And these are the automated test cases. Like once you write the test case, that can be utilized multiple times. And very important one is the coverage. So it Emmunite gives the detailed coverage, like how many flows are covered, how many components are covered, which components are not covered. So that details also we can see in coverage. That's our next topic. So next is Emmunite coverage report, how we analyze that. So Emmunite coverage feature provides a measurement of how much of the Mule application has been executed by a set of Emmunite tests. Suppose we have a few test cases, like 4 5 test cases written. So how many flows are covered, how many components are covered. So we get application overall coverage in this section, as we see like 94%. And we also get the resource level coverage. So that resource level coverage covers the files which are under source main mule section. So these are the files which we have in source main mule. And here also each file has its weightage based on how many components are there or flows are there. So we can see the coverage for individual file here. And as you see, these file names are in blue color. That means these are the hyperlinks. If we click on that, we can go in details, like in one file, in testing demo XML file, how many flows, subflows, or batch jobs or other components are covered, that we can see by resource level. Yeah, so last we have best practices and benefits of unit testing. So, Emmunite best practices. So, each unit test should verify individual components such as transfer message or subflows. Like when we write test cases in Emmunite, we should try to mock the component or tweak the components in a way we verify each DWL script or each transfer message written, so that next time if we do the change in API and we just run the Emmunite, we make sure like the regression is done and the new change is not breaking the existing changes. So that way it helps us to identify any breaking code or something at very initial level, or we can say very easily we can see if the API is breaking. And yeah, in a minute we should try to mock the external dependencies and systems. That means when we have written the test cases, so we should not hit any API in our automation system, because that may because data may change in the backend system. So that's not a good practice. We should try to mock the component in our test cases. Next, we have Emmunite coverage. So we should try to keep the coverage greater than 80%. That helps us to understand like the most of the components and flows are covered in Emmunite. And next we have we should write the negative test cases for each resource. For example, if I am not passing the header, so what's the outcome if we are not passing the URI parameter or query parameter? So these negative test cases also we should write in Emmunite. And we should write additional cases for the validation, choice, or conditional components. So that also helps us to understand or to get the errors if any of the logic has gone wrong. So these are some of the best practices. Next, we have what are the benefits of doing unit testing, and if we spend some time on unit testing. So first one, it reduces the error. Of course, like if developer comes to know his own error at the initial level, so we can fix it very fast. Second, it boosts the productivity and saves time. So suppose we do not test our own code and we just move it to the next level for testing, then they found some errors, they come back, we fix it again. So that way it takes long time. So if we perform unit testing more accurately, that saves time, boosts the productivity. And yes, very good point is like integrity of code, because developer has access to the code, so that person knows like what is written inside API, so we can verify code at like however we want. So it is to maintain the code bug free, and also it do the code validation. Yeah. So when we this is all the benefits. And when we do the testing properly, so we work towards bug free code. But yeah, certainly then also we can have some bugs in uh, other stages like system testing or integration testing. Yeah. So yes, I think that's it. Now we will have demo. So I'll be stopping for 2 seconds. This is my Endpoint Studio. This is a simple project testing demo. And if you see this file, I have a simple listener and APKit router. So this API has two endpoint. One is uh, user and user ID. So this endpoint is to get the user information based on user ID. Another one is to get the all users just by hitting this API. So this is the simple functionality. And internally, this API is making use of a system API. So if you see here, so call user by ID, I am having a flow reference to a different subflow which is having a requester. Yeah, so this is Postman, and I have a collection for this API. If you see, so collection is nothing but the it's like a folder having multiple files. So it's very simple. Like we can create a collection with different scenarios. We can run the collection in one go, and benefit of it is like we can even share the collection once we create for one API. So we just export it and just share with our teammates or any other person who want to test the API. So it's a good practice to maintain collections for API for individual API and having different endpoints. So let me run this API just to show you the feature of this API. 1 second. Meanwhile, this API runs. So this is how I have hosted one of my API in Cloud Hub. So how it's behaving, I have provided the URI parameter. So in testing, I will make sure like if I hit with 1001, so the same response is written. If I change the ID, user ID, so I'm getting response of that ID. We make sure like we are getting the correct structure and the fields are having correct value. Like for 1003 user ID, so first name and last name is so and so, and these are kind of value like URI parameters or body. That's how like we verify. Now as my API is running, yeah, so I have shown you success scenario. So this is how it works. Suppose I pass, like if I am doing unit testing, I will pass some random value. So here it sends empty object. So this is one of the scenario, like for invalid ID, there are no values, so it's empty. If I'm not passing the client ID or client secret, that's a negative scenario. So I am getting 400 bad request, and the error structure, like I'm maintaining error code and error message. If I pass wrong method, so then also the structure is maintained. So that's how we verify different scenarios using Postman. So this was about unit testing using Postman. Now comes the Emmunite tests. So first, like how we create it. So as I told you while doing the PPT, we have two ways. First one is this API kit router has the configuration of our RAML. I'm not able to right click, one second. Yeah, so if I go into the configuration part, so this is referring to my RAML. So that's how it helps me to create test cases. So how we do it, we just do the right click on kit router and we click on create test suite, and with this name the test suite will be created into the test source test Emmunite section. Because I have already done it, so I'm not going to do now. The second way of doing the Emmunite test is, suppose I go into a flow, suppose I want to verify this one and create a test suite for this flow, this flow. So I do the right click. In down we have Emmunite section. um, One second. It's little slow. Yeah, so in the Emmunite section we will have two options here. So we can do the record testing. So we can record the Emmunite test case also. So I have created both ways. So let me show you now. Record test for this flow. If I just click on this, the recording will start, and from Postman I can just go click on this, and that's it. Like it will just start to create recording this flow, and at last we will have an option to configure, and that will create a test suite. So I will show you both of them, like how I have created. So this one is using API kit router, which I have created. So if you see, these are the test cases written based on resource. Like I have user ID. I have this is for 200 scenario. I have for 400 scenario. I have the mock component for the HTTP request which I am making, which I shown you. So I'm going to run this test to show you the coverage. So in this file I have covered different scenarios like 400, 500, and for the other endpoint also 200, 400, and 500, and how we see the coverage and how we analyze it. Just give a second, it will run. Yes, and even if see here it's all in green color, so that means the tests have run successfully. And if I click on here, so how many test cases have been running in this, and down I see coverage report. So Emmunite coverage, if I click on this generate report, it will be like this. I see here 85%. So there is a different weightage. So based on the name of file, like I have testing demo XML, IMPL demo XML, and error handling. We do not have global XML because there are no component here in the message flow. All are the configurations in this file. So that's why we do not have this in our coverage. And yeah, as I told you, like we have the coverage here. If I want to know like why it is 50% and what's missing, so we can just click on this one. So let me maximize it. Yeah, so inside testing demo XML file, we have these different flows, and each flow, how many processors are there. So processor numbers are also there. So how much each is covered. So we can analyze our report like that. In if I go back, this is again like I can go into each file like this and just press back button here. So this is how the coverage report looks like, and we analyze this way. So this one is done. Now let me show you the one which I have created using test recorder. So when we do the test recorder, there are option to mock the API. So we just need to select it. Maybe I can quickly show you. Suppose I am doing this. I go here, record test for this flow. Yeah, so this gives a notification like the recording has started. So I will run this in my local host. Sorry, I think it's a error scenario, so let me correct it. Yeah, so it's recording has started, so I think it's done. So now it enables the configure test button. So I just click on this. So here it gives me the file name, like this is how the file name will be, and this will be the test name. So I can even modify if I want to keep some name like demo, something like this. And I just press next. And these are the components or flows in this file. Here we get option if we want to, let me maximize it. Yeah, so if we want to set input or assert output, we just click. And yeah, we also for each component, suppose I want to mock the this endpoint, so we have different specifications, like I want to mock this processor or verify that this processor was called or spy this processor. So these processors I can enable for any of my flows. So suppose I want to mock this processor, what I want to mock, payload, attribute, or variable. So suppose I want to mock all of them. I just click next, and it's very simple. I just click finish. It will create a suit. Yeah, where did it go? Here it is. So if you see, mock is there. Same way I can do the spy and verify also. Yes, I think that is all for demo now. And yeah, for the reference, I have committed these two because I'm using this mock in my API. These two in my GitHub account, which is public for this repository. So if you want to take a look, you can take a look later. And yes, next we have Q&A. So Jitendra, would you like to take over from here?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yeah, but I guess it's little breaking. Maybe someone else also can confirm.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, yeah, it's good.
It's good for
Okay,
me as well.
okay. So like guys, we can start just first thanks to Diwali for giving a good session on the testing. So yeah, so it was a good session. Thank you so much for taking the time out and give. Thank you very much. So we appreciate. So
Yeah, thank
so
you
like
also Jitendra, like for coordinating, and thank you everyone who has joined. And yeah, thank you for the MuleSoft community, because this is a great platform to learn and understand things more better. So thank you everyone.
yeah. So for now, I will just stop the record. So